Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah Edens. I'm a finance coach, author, and wealth mindset researcher, and I'm so happy you chose to join me today. So you've seen at the grocery store how much prices have been going up. It's just been insane the past couple of years. This year hasn't been quite as bad as the past several years. It's only gone up by about 4%, but between 2021 and 22, prices at the grocery store went up by about 11% on food items, which is just pretty much unprecedented, at least in my lifetime for sure. It is just a real adjustment for all of us right now. And if you look back to typically what we see in terms of how much prices of grocery items go up due to inflation, it's typically 1%, maybe 2%. So you can see that when we start getting into things like 4% a year or 11% a year rate of inflation on grocery prices, why you're coming home from the grocery store or getting to cash register at checkout and they tell you how much it is and you're just sort of feeling like you're reeling from sticker shock at the checkout line and wondering like what happened. Well, that's what happened. Prices on groceries have just gone up a lot, and they've been one of the things that's been most affected by inflation, and in a place where we really notice it because we all have to eat each and every day. And so in today's video, we're going to be talking about my top 10 ways that I like to save money on groceries. I have several other videos about this that I'll link to in the description as well. And I also have an entire playlist on my YouTube channel about how to beat inflation because it is causing so many financial stresses for everyone right now. And so you can, rather than letting it stress you out and feeling out of control, you can start to take control by understanding what inflation is. I have a whole video on that. And then understanding strategies that you can employ right now that will help you to be able to cope with that better and have it not have such a big hit on your budget right now. Not to say it doesn't have a big hit on your budget, because it absolutely does, but it's going to make it a little bit easier for you to manage your money right now. So let's get started. So my number one tip for you, and the one that I use when I'm saving money at the grocery store, is to first of all get a budget for how much I'm spending on groceries each month. And I have a video that I will link to in the description about how to budget in Excel. And I have a whole other playlist about budgeting that you can also watch. So lots of resources for you there as well. But first and foremost, I just established how much I need to spend on groceries for each month and just come up with a number that's the budgeted amount for groceries. And if you eat out, that's going to include eating out as well, takeaway, things like that. So any food that you're purchasing, whether it's prepared or you're buying things at the grocery store, it's all going to go into that grocery budget. And so if you have that number that works with the rest of your budget, then you know exactly how much you have to spend, because that's really critical. And then also you want to think about kind of how much you're going to prioritize your grocery spending right now, because if you have some options and some wiggle room in your budget, it may be worth thinking about if you want to just prioritize spending on groceries a little bit more than normal right now, just because that might be what it takes for you and your family to eat healthy, nutritious meals each and every day, is just to accept that it's costing more and that maybe you have to cut in other areas if there's other areas of your budget that you can cut back on. So I know that's something I've had to do. For me, my health is a major priority. And so eating healthy is a big piece of maintaining good health. And so I've just had to go without some things that I would normally buy in order to be able to prioritize spending on healthy, nutritious food at the grocery store and not scrimp on that and then potentially experience health issues down the road. So that's my first one, is figure out kind of how much you want to prioritize your groceries and your food right now and what you're willing to spend on that. And if there's other areas that temporarily you can cut back on if you need to. Number two is to meal plan ahead of time. This is something that I've been doing for years and it's extremely helpful. There are so many great meal planning resources online completely for free. So you can just plug those into Google or YouTube search engines and you'll come up with so many resources about how to plan your meals. And then that'll even generate shopping lists and things like that. But if you have a meal plan, that way you'll know exactly what you need to buy each and every week. You'll know how much of whatever it is that you need to purchase, so you're not buying too much food and then having, overage that you didn't mean to buy that you can't eat through fast enough. And so obviously, if you want to save money on groceries, the very last thing you want to be doing is wasting any food. And so if you meal plan, that helps you be really strategic about exactly how much you need to buy each week. And then also too, what you do is as you have those lists of what you need to buy, whether it's something that's generated through one of these online meal planners or you are making that list yourself, then really stick to your shopping list, whether you're shopping online and putting things in your cart there or you're shopping in the store. Just stick to your list like glue, because that will help you avoid any impulse purchases at the grocery stores. Grocery stores and stores in general are set up for you to fail because they have all these research and market research that they've done at the grocery store of what things are most eye-grabbing, most attention-grabbing, and things that are areas of the store where they strategically put things where they know people will see them and just grab them and put them in their cart. So that's like ends of the aisles or ends of the aisle there at checkout when you're standing there in the checkout line and waiting for your turn. And so if you have a list, then you can avoid kind of all those things that are strategically placed to, lure you into buying things that maybe you just don't need to buy or don't have money for. And that will really save you some money as well. So having that list and that meal plan is going to be extremely helpful. Plus, it just gives you peace of mind because that way you know what you're eating for the week. You don't have to be hitting an evening where you hit, 5 o'clock and everybody's hangry and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what we're having for dinner. And we don't really have money this month to eat out, but I guess I'll just, order pizza because everybody's hungry. It just keeps you away from that scenario because you've already planned ahead. And it does take prep work, but once you make a habit out of that, you'll actually prefer that to having no plan and ending up with kind of that very stressful situation where everybody's all hangry at dinner time and nobody really feels like cooking at dinner time. Let's be honest, not even mom or dad. So that way you've done all your prep ahead of time. You can even batch cook for the week. We like to do that at our house a lot, or grill up a bunch of chicken to put on salads and things later in the week. Lots of hacks that you can find there on YouTube for simple and easy meal preps. I'd encourage you to look into that. Number 3 is, and we kind of touched on this, is to opt for dining out less frequently. So this is definitely something that we've cut back on. Sadly, I do really enjoy going to a good restaurant from time to time and getting a beautifully prepared meal and having the fun social element of being able to dine in a restaurant. But we have definitely cut back on that here at our house just because of how eating out is one of the most expensive ways to eat right now. And even fast food restaurants, while they might look cheaper, when you're just getting a burger to go or something, you have to think about kind of the health benefits for that for you, which is zero. And also a lot of those takeaway and fast food restaurants can really start to damage your health long term if you eat there very often. So while it might look like it's cheap and fast and efficient to eat there, it's not necessarily the best thing for your health long term and can lead to costly health problems down the road. So if you have a favorite restaurant that you love to eat at that cooks beautiful, healthy, nutritious food, maybe make it a once in a while thing and cut back a little bit on that. Also, not to pick on Starbucks, but coffee shops are another thing that I've really seen the price go up on, the price per latte. If we thought lattes cost a lot a couple of years ago, it doesn't even hold a candle to what they're costing now. So for the price of an average latte at Starbucks, which is about $5 to $6 right now, depending on which one you're getting, you can get an entire bag of coffee and have very nice cups of coffee for, a week or two, depending on how much coffee you drink. Rather than just having to buy a cup at a time. So that's another thing that you can think through is restaurants, coffee shops, maybe cut back a little bit on those and have that as, using Uber Eats or takeaway. Just use that as a special treat instead of a nightly occurrence, and that's going to really help your budget out because we're just looking at things that the goal is saving money on groceries. So if that's your goal, that's something to try. And then number 4 is to not buy processed food, or not very much. So this kind of comes back as well to ways you can save money. Yes, it takes more time to prep food at home, so it definitely is an investment of your time. But if you're wanting to save money, then steer clear of the frozen dinner aisles, and then also anything that's typically sold down the middle aisles of the store, if you want to think about it that way, that's sold in a box or a package or a bag. Typically, those things are highly processed, full of sugar and salts and all kinds of other additives and fillers that aren't necessarily good for you. And they just cost more than if you're buying fruit, vegetables, whole grains, things like that, chicken, beef, fish. You think about things that don't have an ingredients list a mile long of what's in them. So if you want to think about it that way, that's another really good way to save money, is just buy things in their original state instead of stuff that's been highly processed and packaged up, chips, crackers, cookies, all kinds of stuff, and if you want to have cookies, just make some at home, because it's going to cost a lot less per cookie than when you're buying them in a box. And it's a fun project to do with your family as well. So they usually taste a lot better than the packaged ones you get at the store, and typically have a lot less sugar in them while you're at it. So that's another thing to think about, is cutting back on your processed food. Number 5 is to work more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, things like that into your diet. Those things don't tend to cost that much. If you go looking at the price at the grocery store, even if you're buying the organic option for vegetables, fruits, dried beans, things like that, rice, any of those grains, the price on that typically is not going to be too excessive. So no matter what your budget, you'll typically be able to afford a fair amount of those items, and that can be really helpful. And what I like to do is get dried beans and cook them at home in a pressure cooker, because that's just the most convenient way I've found to get them cooked fast. I'll link in the description to a similar one to the one I have. But that can be a really good option for you as well. And then you can also obviously, get fish or beef or chicken or whatever kind of, if you eat meat, whatever kind of protein that you like, and just kind of use it more as a topper or a small side as opposed to the main event. And so that can be a really good option for you as well, is to center your plate when you're preparing your meals around fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and beans, and then use things like meat and fish and proteins as sort of a side as opposed to the main event. And again, there's tons of meal planning resources online available for you as well. And so you can look into that if you're kind of needing to shift the way that you eat. If you're used to eating a lot of meat and having to save some money, that's also a really easy place to cut back on, because meat and fish is just really pricey right now, unfortunately. Unfortunately, so are eggs. Eggs have gone up astronomically in the last couple of years. And so kind of using them in smaller portions than maybe you're used to, and filling in the difference with fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans, can be a really good way to kind of get that option. You obviously want to make sure that you're not eating so little meat that you're running into problems with iron deficiency. So talk with your doctor about that, and just make sure that you're not running into a situation where you've got iron deficiency from not having enough natural sources of that in your diet. But otherwise, it can be a really good thing to cut back a little bit on your meat consumption if there's a good way for you to do that, and center your plate around kind of the more healthier things that cost less anyway at the store. Number 6, here we go. This kind of comes back as well to making sure you have your nutrient density in the right balance. So number 6 is to make sure you're taking a high quality multivitamin supplement daily, and you want to talk to your healthcare provider before you start any new supplements, obviously. But having a good high quality multivitamin on board, if you're in a situation where money's tight and you're having to really scrimp on groceries, can help you not become deficient in your important minerals and vitamins that you need. And even if you're eating a pretty balanced diet, sometimes it's hard to get all the right vitamins and minerals from our food. And so that's something to look into as well, is just to supplement a little bit more with those and make sure that you're getting the right amount of nutrients in your diet. Number 7 is to use up everything you buy. So this is really good. Again, it kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but it is really important to keep tabs on what are you buying at the store, and then particularly when it comes to fresh stuff like the fruits and vegetables. Are you using them all up, or are you buying things that your kids just won't eat or that you don't like, but you're buying because you think, oh, this is good for me, I should buy it, but then you like never eat it. And so then it ends up going into the compost bin or getting thrown away. And then it's just money that you're flushing down the drain. So really pay attention to, as well as trying to have a healthy, balanced diet, pay attention to what your family will actually eat and how much of it you're able to get through in any given week, and really work hard to not overbuy. Just remember, if you need to buy more, odds are they'll have it at the grocery store. You can go back and get some more, but it's much easier to do it that way and more efficient for your budget than to overbuy and then be like, oh my goodness, we have so many salad greens, we need to eat 3 salads a day this week, or we bought way too much of whatever and we've just got to like find a way to use it really fast. There are some things that freeze well. So if you've overbought on like butter and cheese and things like that, those you can just pop in the freezer. If you've got a meat that you've bought that's a little bit, you bought too much of it, you can pop that in the freezer and keep that for, check there. I'll put a link in the description. There's a really good resource that helps you know how long things can keep in the freezer. So I'll link to that because I don't remember how long off the top of my head all those things keep for. But your freezer is your best friend if you've got some stuff that you overbought on. There's some fruits that can freeze well, some vegetables. But again, the ideal situation is that you're only buying what you need each week when it comes to fresh stuff, because it just only keeps so long. And so that way you're leaving it at the grocery store until you need it. So that'll just help you save a little bit of money. Number 8 is to stop buying sugary sodas, fruit juices, wine, beer, any kind of alcohol, or just buy less of them. So this might take a little bit of retooling some of your habits. If you're used to drinking a lot of soda, or your kids really like drinking soda, you're used to having juice at at breakfast every morning, or a glass of wine at night. It can take a little bit of adjustment, but it's worth it because all of those sugary drinks are not good for your teeth or your health. And then obviously alcohol is not good for your long-term health either, unless it's consumed in moderation. And so it can be a really good way to save money on these areas of your budget that just aren't necessities, like you can live without them. And so it might take a little bit of finding some good substitutions that you really like to drink instead of those things, but it can save you a lot of money in the long run. So it's worth thinking about cutting back, or maybe just saving things for special occasion. Maybe just have a glass of wine on a special occasion, or a birthday celebration, something like that. Maybe occasionally have a glass of juice at breakfast, or occasionally let your kids have a soda. One of the things that I feel like is important when you're changing your habits is don't go crazy. Start small, make small changes. And don't ever cut anything completely out of your life when you're making changes either. Don't tell yourself, I'll never have another glass of wine, or I'll never have another glass of juice, or I'm never going to let my kids touch soda again. Nothing like that, but maybe start to kind of bring it back into moderation and back into something where those things are special treats. And then that way, you can have them, your kids know they can have them occasionally, but it's just not a daily occurrence. It'll save you a lot of money in the long run. Number 9 is don't be afraid to ask for refunds at your grocery store. So this is really good because sometimes don't know about you, but I will get home from the grocery store and I will just find that something I bought actually has already expired and they just didn't pull it from the shelves. Or I'll get something home like produce and it'll, go bad the next day. So sometimes this happens. And so what I do is I usually hang on to my grocery receipts for about 1 to 2 weeks. And then if something wasn't good, I'll just take it back with the receipt and say, hey, I'd just like a refund on this, please. This didn't work out for me. And most stores are very, very good about that at customer service with helping you out about that. And some stores, if you've been shopping online, will actually give you the refund directly through their app if you ask for a refund on the item as well. So it can be really, really easy that way. So there's a lot of ways to get refunds on purchases that you made at the grocery store that just weren't the quality that you expected. And so that's good too. Why should you lose money on something that maybe the grocery store left an expired item on the shelf and just forgot to pull it and went bad and now you can't use it, but you paid for it. So it's maybe one extra little step of remembering to take something back to the grocery store next time, but it's definitely worth it if you're looking to save money. And number 10, last but not least, is to stock up on dry goods, household supplies, pantry items, things like that. when they're on sale. So fresh items and fruits and vegetables, things like that, are very tough to stock up on because unless there's something that freezes well and you've got a big freezer set up, it doesn't work out that well. But for any of your dry goods that have long shelf lives and, things like coffee, tea, dried beans, canned soups, I could go on and on with this stuff, pastas, stuff like that. Those can really be a good thing to stock up on when they go on sale, because if you know that your family's going to use them within the next 6 months to a year, then just wait for the store to run sales and pick up as much as you've got room to store and you think you'll need. And that way you've bought during the sale and been able to take advantage of those lower prices, because that's about the best way to save money on groceries right now, is to see what they've got on sale and really shop those sales. So kind of as a related point, you also want to make sure you're signed up for all the sale kind of loyalty member programs at every grocery store you shop at, if they have something like that. And if like your store has an app for their members program or one of those key fob cards, just make sure that you swipe that so you're actually getting the savings, because they'll advertise things in their sale flyer, but then you need your membership on your account to be able to get the savings most of the time. So just double check that you're getting the savings on those sales as well. But that can be a really good way to save money and then be able to also just kind of have some extra things in your pantry, so that if you have one night where you're not sure what to make for dinner, you've got some things that are easy to pull out, like canned soups or pasta or something that's super simple and fast that you can pull out, put with a salad and some bread, and you're good to go. So those are my favorite 10 tips for how to save at the grocery store right now. I'm definitely feeling the pain with you at the moment. It is extremely crazy at the grocery store right now. And a lot of times I'll get to checkout and they'll read me off how much my cart's worth, and I'll just look at them and be like, oh my goodness, what? So it can also be helpful when you're going through to kind of do mental math and start kind of mentally adding up, okay, I'm putting this in and this is about this much and this is about that much, just so you don't get to check out with something astronomical, or worse, something that's really going to blow your budget, and then you're in an awkward position of maybe having to put things back. So if you need to, just pull up the calculator app on your phone and just add things up as you go through the store. If you're on a really strict budget, money's really tight, and you really need to not get to the point where you're at checkout and you've got more than you can afford in that cart. It definitely happens. It's happened to me before. And it's very awkward when you're at checkout to have to say, oh my goodness, like I can't afford all of this now, I'm gonna have to go put some back. That's very awkward. And so it's just easier to kind of add it up in your head or with your calculator app on your phone, or you can even take a little calculator with you to the grocery store, whatever's easiest. But that way you arrive at checkout and you've got it, in the bag with how much you needed to spend for that week on groceries as well. So I hope those tips were helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching my video, and let me know in the comments how you're saving money on groceries right now, because that's only my top 10 tips. So I'd be really curious to hear what yours are. And I also have a really fun announcement, by the way. I just recently made my blog available in Spanish. And so I will put a link to that in the description as well as on screen about where you can go to read my blog in Spanish if you're watching this today with Spanish subtitles. And I'm just trying to make my content available to as many people in as many different languages as I can. I know we've got like 100+ languages here on YouTube in the subtitle options, which is really amazing. And now my blog is available as well in English and in Spanish. So that was a fun thing that I got off the ground this week that I was really pleased to be able to bring to you. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again soon in my next video.